Shalom and welcome to another informative, interesting, entertaining episode of TT Online Community Voices, and it is brought to you with the kind compliments of the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. And today, we're going to have a little chat with two young ladies with me, and we're going to be discussing divorce. I know it's a touchy topic, I know it's a sensitive topic, but it's a topic that affects a lot of our Trinbagonians and people around the world. So today we're going to find out how to deal with divorce, life after divorce, and how to be your best self, the best you that you can be after a life of divorce. So joining me, I have Ms. Arlene Smith of the Community Mediation Services.
Good
so
morning.
welcome, Arlene.
Good morning, Room.
And how are you?
Great.
All right. Thanks
you
for joining us.
Thank you.
To my right, I am joined by Edris Gabriel of the National Family Services. Welcome, Edris.
Thank you.
All right. So let me first start off by asking these ladies, what services do you all offer? I'll start with you, Ali. What services does the mediation group offer?
Okay, so I'm at Community Mediation Services Division, and our primary services are mediation services. So we promote talk it out rather than fight it out. So if someone has a conflict with maybe a family member, a neighbor, an employee, employer, landlord, and tenant, they can come to community mediation. It's a walk-in process. It is voluntary. It is free. It is confidential. And the other of our primary services is counseling services. Again, 80% of our client population is sometimes referred from the court, but it also have that aspect of walking, that voluntary aspect of accessing our services.
So anybody off the street too is having a dispute. If two friends have an argument,
Yes, they can.
They can come off the street and come. And what about relationships, like a husband and a wife having an argument?
Great. So the thing is, those are our primary services. But we do have a suite of services that we offer in addition to support families, individuals, groups, and community. So we have our community empowerment program. So this is the opportunity where we do like stress management, emotional intelligence, conflict de-escalation. So they are seasonal. We have them during the time of July, August, and it have a certificate element of it. We also have parenting support groups. So at different of our 8 locations, they are parenting support groups that meet once a month at the last week of the month, where it have this peer element of all in the same boat phenomenon, and that we could come together and share issues with regards to parenting and relationship. We also have recently a community inclusive mediation program that really started off in Carenage, Sandy Grande, and Urupuch, training persons in the community to be community mediators. And
so not only they could come into you all, you would have like outposts, so people who could go into the community
for different services. And recently, we just completed successfully our cycle of co-parenting. So persons who would have been separated or divorced, and now they have the issue of co-parenting, we now have this dynamic program that is child-focused rather than self-focused parent. So it was initiated by the court as a pilot project, focusing on the children, and it have been successful. We just completed a cycle, and another cycle is due to commence in January.
Okay, great. So, Edris, on your end, in terms of family services, what services do you all offer?
Okay, it's a long list, but I will just name a few because it can take up your entire
couple, that's okay.
All right, the name speaks for itself, National Family Services. The focus is on the family.
So is this family planning? Family planning and family services?
Absolutely not.
Two different things?
Two very different things. But it's sort of connected in the way that when we, for good parenting, and starting families and so on, family planning, I can understand that we can refer clients to the family planning, but we are separate, very separate entity from
well, I learned something, guys, because I thought family planning, family services was all the same thing. I thought she was coming to tell me how many kids to have, how much I should have, how much I should have.
No. We only do that. We don't tell how many, but we also try to inform people of wise parenting, starting wise family, how we do that. And we have a number of programs for that. Like I said, we are National Family Services, who are our clientele, everybody. Because every one of us belong to a family in some form or the other. All right? We also try to work with stakeholders because we believe if we can come together, and usually if our cause is similar, it'd be more effective and we produce better quality service.
Right.
All right? Now, our main source is counseling. All right? How we get our clientele is kind of similar to Arlene in the sense that we get walk-ins. People just walk off the street and come and they heard about us and they need help. Right? People calling and refer people to us. Also, different agencies refer people to us as well. And the courts, the 9th Magistrates Court as well as Family Court refer people to us as well. All right? So, people know about us. But you can always you can always do your dissemination of information like what we're doing here now. All right? And we do also a number of programs that really deals with family. For example, we have a parenting program that I've been running for a few years. And certainly with the pandemic, or for the last 2 years, we have been doing it virtual. Normally, we go out into the community and have these programs. But because of the pandemic, we are doing it virtual. All right? Co-parenting, I heard him mention, is one of the aspects we look at a lot. We do parenting for men, which is one of the recent ones because we realized that men in this area tend to be sort of forgotten, and we want to bring them in because a family is not only with a mother, it's a mom and dad. And we try to encourage that as long as it is possible.
Right.
Also, our brand new program that we offer in the line of parenting is brand new, I'm telling you, still wrapped up in cellophane, is our parenting for grandparents.
Parenting for grandparents.
For grandparents, because we realize, and over the years, if you look back in the history of parenting, that the grandparents have always played a very pivotal role in the raising of children. And so I must say we were very, very pleased to see the number of responses we have been getting from grandparents. All right? So these are some of the things that we do. Also, one of the topics that is very near and dear to our heart, and a lot of work is being focused on that, is domestic violence. All right? It is something that we see, and I'm saying this very carefully, Mr. Rome. There's a tendency, and quite possibly it has to do with the pandemic, and everybody's at home, the stress and tension within the home environment. Domestic violence is sort of taken a little.
So you all have seen an increase in domestic violence cases since the start of the pandemic?
In recent times. We have to be very careful how we put this across. And it's caused our concern. All right? And a lot of work is being done with that. We, through our outreach programs, for example, that is a topic we deal with. And by the way, we have a radio program, an annual radio program. It's called Family Time Let's Talk. It is on broadcast on I-95, and most recently on Radio Isaac. And there we disseminate the information of what we do. And even through that vehicle or medium, we do get people calling in for our services.
So let me ask, we're talking today in terms of divorce.
Yes.
So do you all do any divorce recovery counseling methods?
Well, that is a nice way of putting it, but a nice term that you use, I must say, Mr. Rome. But there are people coming to us, either they're in the process of filing for divorce, or even just thinking about it. And yes, and they ask for our help by way of counseling service. One of the things that we try to do is, I don't want to use the term mediation, but that sort of comes into play, that we have marital counseling. We first try to bring the couple together and see if there's any way that they can reconcile their differences before it has a stage. Right. But sometimes we have people who come who already have applied for divorce. And sometimes they're having second thoughts. And usually because the children are involved in this circumstance, and should we do it? Is it the best? And there's sometimes you have, and usually you find that by the wife, usually will say that I'm also thinking of staying for the children. And that is something that we always have to look at, because sometimes that is not the best reason to stay in a marriage.
So Arlene, let me bring you in on this one. When it comes to divorce, what role does the mediation services play when it comes to divorce?
Okay, so some of the cases what are referred from the court may be mediation. Sometimes around issues, well, mediation does not deal with criminal matters. So it wouldn't mediate criminal matters, but social issues. So they may have issues as it pertains to co-parenting and the children, sometimes just communication issues with each other. So they may come to community mediation for mediation. But part of our mediation process is pre-mediation counseling. And this is where it becomes dynamic, because you may have come primarily for mediation, and through the pre-mediation counseling, persons now identify root cause. Now, the unique thing about all cultures is that IQ, the focus is on education and building knowledge. But most of us, we were never taught about emotional intelligence. So sometimes in the pre-mediation counseling, people identify that they are root cause. So where we act in the relationship may be a leaf, but it's not the root. So what we identified through pre-mediation counseling, at least through my experience and my colleagues, I look at the root cause. So using a very non-judgmental approach, because you may ask persons what they would like to address. And most times the number one always surround communication issues.
You know, I had a discussion just last week with a psychiatrist, and he was saying that when they did these studies of marriages that have worked, and they asked all of the different aspects of a marriage and what keeps a marriage together, a lot of people would have thought it would have been touch or sex or something like that. And when they look at it, the number one reason why marriages stay together was communication. But it's the number one reason why they fail as well.
They fail as well.
It's poor communication.
Yes.
And we're using the term mediation. And for those of you who may not know the term, it's like a third party who comes in as like a referee.
Yes, so the mediator is this neutral. The style of a mediator, when you compare to a social worker, it's two different techniques and style. So a mediator is that neutral person. So you sit there as the mediator room, and we could be two different parties of persons, or two individuals, two different groups. So you will hear our narrative. Party one, I share my narrative. My friend and colleague there, Ms. Gabriel, she shares her narrative. Then we come to this place of negotiation. What do we desire? Now, what we realize, the success of pre-mediation is that sometimes we want certain what we really want. So part of the pre-mediation counseling helped me to know, all right, I want ABC.
Right.
And Ms. Gabriel say, you know what, I want ABG. And here's where the mediator, where we go through this negotiation, and we are now justifying why A and B and why G. And it comes now sometimes to this mutual voluntary agreement that, hello, we're going with A and B.
Right.
We agree to A and B. A contract is made up where it becomes a binding document that myself and Ms. Gabriel...
You have an agreement and you make them sign.
However, because our services are voluntary, there are times when we are able to come to a voluntary agreement.
Right.
So we may come to a place, let's say they will refer to the court, we will write back to the court saying that parties 1 and 2 have not come to an agreement.
So then the court takes it over from there?
From there. So we don't, because our services are very confidential, we cannot disclose the grounds and why.
Right.
But however, from the mediator position, there are sometimes when we do a caucus. And with this is where persons, we are at a place where me and Ms. Gabriel just not coming to any form of agreement. And from your good office, you may say, let's go back to counseling.
Right.
We realize that there's a lot of emotions.
So that's what I come to see.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen cases where it's just bacchanal? Where two people come and it's bacchanal?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I use the term bacchanal, but I understand what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
But we have this all the time, particularly when has to do with relationships.
And as I was saying, because I know when two people come, it's not going to be a mediator sitting in the middle here, and one person calmly sit there. And one
The thing is, I am not a mediator, so I'm a social work specialist.
Right.
So of course I have never sat in on but I only assume sometimes from counseling, there are times when we may have a joint session or a couple session, and people become very emotional.
So in terms of, we're sticking with the divorce.
Right.
And what you all have been seeing in terms of family services as well. Is it a case where you see emotions get the better of one person or the other, where they're not logically?
In my experience, and when I look at my clientele, with regard to that particular issue, emotion is really runs awry.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And that is where the job of the social worker is to bring order. You have to bring order into the chaos. If you don't do that as a social worker, you lose control of the whole process, and you might as well stop. How I can speak of how I do it. Before we get started, when I realize emotions are running high, what you will refer to as a bacchanal.
Yeah.
That's emotions running high and people are losing control of the emotions. All right? And as I said, particularly as it pertains to relationships. All right? I lay down the ground rules. We have to be very clear, why are you here? We do not force. There's a rule in National Family Services, we do not force counseling on the people, although you might have parties, family members, whoever will want this person to have.
Right.
And the reason why you cannot force counseling, because the client at that moment is not open to it. So what are you doing, really?
Yeah, because if somebody comes to counseling and because they were forced to come, they would just sit down and they might just have up a wall. They mightn't open up their emotions. So then that leads to, do you encourage people to express their emotions when they come?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, because sometimes that's the best way of getting the information from the person. Right? This is how you feel. And many times I will have clients who sit and during the course of the session, they shed tears.
Right.
Because they're touched deeply by whatever is happening. And sometimes when people decide to come to counseling, usually, and that they want to, usually it's because they reach to a place of hopelessness. I do not know how to go further. And I need you to help me to get there. And sometimes getting there, they don't even know where they want to go.
Right.
And we have to work that out.
So in terms of a divorce, and they come for, as you would say, divorce therapy, or for counseling. With the divorce, how can this help?
That is easy, what you just asked there. Because first they have to share why they're coming. They're thinking of separation. They're not sure, right? And you use the term, one of the biggest issues in relationship is the communication. That people do not know how to communicate to each other. I always say, and a relationship, whatever form that may be, the basis, the foundation of a relationship is trust. You see that word, trust?
Trust.
All right? And I always say marriage is a series of compromise that you constantly have to make with each other. And the only way parties will compromise is if they think that this is worth it. This relationship is worth for me, because compromise is really I giving up a little and you giving up a little and trying to meet each other in the middle to move forward. And so that relationship have to mean so much to you to say, yes, I'm willing to do that. Because sometimes it requires you to be doing things differently than what you're used to.
Yeah.
Those are not easy things.
Yeah, as you say, you're giving up a piece of yourself.
Sometimes they reach that stage.
Yeah, you're giving up a piece and
the trust.
The thing with trust too, and a lot of people would have said this. I heard somebody say
that's the foundation.
Trust is like in a marriage, because we're dealing with the divorce. Trust is like a vase. And sometimes when you break it and you put it back together, it mightn't be the same.
No, usually not the same.
It mightn't be the same.
It's not the same. And what you're referring to there, about the beautiful vase, when it's cracked and you're trying to put it together. For example, if in a relationship, one of the parties has had an extramarital affair.
Yeah.
And they come back and say, well, okay, we have done that. And you decide, well, we want to move forward. I want to forgive. You see that word forgive? It's the hardest thing for a human being to do. And some they say, well, I've done it, I forgive you. But emotionally, deep in the heart, that is not the case. So that will every way that you can do it again. Maybe you'll do it again. If I see you talking to somebody, checking your emails, and that's some of the things that I have, going through the phone, you will hear a lot of that. Why those things are happening? Because I don't trust you.
So if somebody is going through a situation like that, they want to have a divorce, they want to seek counseling, they want to seek therapy, where do they go? Do they go to mediation or do they go to family services?
Either or.
Either or?
Either or. Basically, our services
and both and the services from National Family Services also free.
Right. And
similarly, it's free, confidential, and voluntary.
So they can come on either side. In terms of the mediation side of things in divorce, what would you all usually see when it comes to divorce and mediation? Is it that they come in for counseling to come back together? Is it that they want to split the properties, or do you all deal with that sort of thing?
No, those addressed at the court level.
At the court level, okay.
So the thing about it is, sometimes you see this is the value of pre-mediation counseling, because counseling look at the holistic person. So for me, our approach, and my colleagues also, we will start with individual before couple, before we join.
Yes.
Because some of the issues have nothing to really do with your party. It might be contributing factors. So for me, at the individual, I look at the root as well as my colleagues. I focus on the root, using a very non-judgmental, allowing the person. So I sell the benefits of counseling. Not only is it addressing your place of this learned helplessness, but it's also an opportunity to enhance and improve your well-being. So what I have discovered, though trust, I will say trust is the trunk. I wouldn't put it as the root. I'll say trust is the trunk of the tree. It's very visible when people lack trust or mistrust. You can see it, the trunk. But there are some underlying issues which are in the root of the matter. For example, because we are part of a family, like family, we have this issue with parental style and attachment.
Okay.
So at the very formative years of a child development, between birth to 2 years, is where they develop trust, individual develop trust. Okay. When I cry, would you pick me up? When I'm hungry, would you feed me? So the whole concept of trust and mistrust happens in the formative years of an individual's life.
So then somebody in a relationship who are going through a divorce, we may think they don't trust their partner, but it could be something that they have always had inside of them. Correct. Where they have that insecurity of they're not trusting people on the whole.
Correct. So we are set in default by our experiences. So I always tell my clients, when you look at your Facebook, your WhatsApp, you have a picture set in default. It means that if I call you, you call anyone, that's the picture you will see. That picture is really structured by our childhood experiences. So I learn the world, I see the world through my primary caregivers. And I have now a concept of this world. Is it a safe place? Is it a place I could trust people? Or has it been a cruel place for me? So I come now to be an adult. Remember, I'm a sum total of all my experiences. So we come into a relationship room, but I have daddy issues. My father wasn't there. I have neglect. I have abuse. Or sometimes I have seen dominance. So I have seen mommy as the leading figure, and she have this feminist. And by all means, I'm not against a feminist belief. Everyone have their belief. And she might have a dominating role, or daddy have a dominating role. So when I become an adult, I am looking for what I am accustomed to, or the flip of it. So you may see someone say, my mother used to make my father be a walkover. So you see me? I'm an independent woman. No man ain't walking over me. So we have this yin yang. So sometimes when I'm doing a session with someone and you go back and I ask them the style of parenting, and I'll ask both parties that, and there's this thing of empathy. Because what you will realize in that moment is, oh my God, I am following the pattern
of what
they call it generational dysfunctional patterns. And I'm seeing a pattern and a cycle. And it's on this premise, when I locate a cycle, I will ask that person, do you want to disrupt this cycle?
So is that possible to disrupt that cycle? Seeing that you're subconsciously carrying this emotion with you, this method of doing things with you for your whole life, because that's what you would have learned from your parents and from the world that you were exposed to. You mentioned disruption. Could you change that?
Of course you can. So someone could have a very fearful avoidance. Someone would have grown up in a very traumatic experience. And with the therapeutic intervention, and I always advocate, you are the author. You are the person who you are leading. It's not about me. It's all about you. You are the expert of your life. How can I tell you about your life, Rome? You have lived this life. So you know your strengths. You know your limitations. So when we look now from a system perspective, what strengths do you have in you to disrupt this pattern? Okay, so mommy did it like this and granny did it like this. We call it a genogram. So we see in this pattern. But what do you have? You may say, I have education. You might say, I have information. We are now more social beings than our parents. So you may look at your strengths list and say, I have enough in me and the determination and the desire to disrupt this pattern. So the method I would use is through a mentorship. Is there anyone in your life that you truly admire?
Yeah.
You know, what it is about that person you admire? So you have to now see difference, and it's based on your motivation. And this is where I think as expert, we have this leverage. Because I could give you the advantages. I'm not telling you what to do, but I could say option A offers this, and option B offers this. And if you remain in this cycle, what will happen? You will not heal, and you will not become the best version. So there is a Chinese proverb that talk about this nice when you talk about a vase that have been shattered. And what they will do is mold those pieces back together, and they will put gold trimmings in it. And they will take something that seems of no value and bring it to a priceless place. You have that power inside of you.
I like that.
I like
that analogy.
But you said something about the motivation. You have to have the motivation.
Yes.
And that is key. And because what you have just outlined there is a lot of work that person has to do in order to change. Because you're asking them to change a pattern of behavior. And some people, it's very difficult for them to do that. Because you're disrupting something that they have always held dear and think, but this is who I am, and now you're asking them to change that.
And this is where, Ms. Gabriel, the empowerment, because we are the experts.
Right.
So I can see my client, and based on when we do our assessment, I know what you will need based on what you say. So I will know if a mentor, I'll know if one of our services will help you. So imagine you go to one of our CEP programs, stress management or conflict de-escalation, and you sat down there. Now it's virtual, and then you get a certificate. You know what this certificate says? That I am an expert in conflict de-escalation. So it is a form now of empowerment. And then when we refer you maybe to our parenting support group, and there's something with all in the same boat phenomenon, this peer that address taboos, that me and you as a professional may see a taboo and we may not be able to address it because we may be crossing boundaries. However, if we're in a peer group, my peer could call me out and say, well, you consider strippiness. But what kind of strippiness is that? I can't say that, but your peer. So we see now the value of the supporting suite of services that is offered by all our agencies.
So you mentioned something in terms of conflict de-escalation and getting a certificate. So is it that somebody could come to one of these programs and be certified to go out there and de-escalate conflict?
Well, they're learning the tools. We service community of interest and as well as community of geographic location. So let's say your agency desire to do some of these programs, stress management and stuff. They get a certificate. It is saying that, you know what, I have some knowledge in this particular area. I may not be the expert of it, But you know what? My knowledge base have expanded.
Right. But I can do it one of those courses. The amount of bacchanal I see.
Of course you may.
I can de-escalate. It. Just step in there and say hello.
And please, you can go up on our website at community government, at community sport and community development, and our numbers are there. And we have different locations. So if you are in Sandy Grande area, we have location there. And if you are the East West, so we have location in Tinapuna and in Port of Spain on Frederick Street and in Central Shogunas. And if you're living down Penal or Point 14. So all of the community. All of the community. Is
it the same thing with the family services?
Yes.
If somebody wants to access family services in each community?
I wouldn't call all, but I'll give a few. Like in Tinapuna, we try to make it accessible for the citizenry. Okay? So, for example, we have one in Tinapuna, we have as far as Point 14, Hoover, these areas, and then the head office where I work, that is on Frederick Street.
Well, I know as well you all have a number that I'm seeing here, 623-2608.
No, that's the PBX number.
Okay.
All right, and what we ask when people are calling in, we usually ask them to call the head office because it's easy, we can just redirect the call.
Right.
And that is, as you just called, 623-2608. And our extensions at the head office is from 6701 right up to 6707.
And now, all right, so we on divorce.
Yes, I want to come back to the divorce here.
Yes. Why I brought it back because I'm thinking, we spoke about the mediation, we spoke about the counseling.
Right.
Now, if it reaches a point where, all right, these people are not going to get back together.
Oh, yes, we have those.
Right?
We have those situations.
They are divorced, completely divorced. They file divorce, they have divorce papers. And they don't know how to cope.
Well, that is exactly, that is the whole point.
How do we cope with
That's the whole point. The people come to us who have divorce. They have that piece of document in their hands, which is symbolic to the marriage is terminated.
Yes.
Right? But where do I go from here? Because remember, okay, after all the reasons you have justified why you have decided to take that step that you have taken, okay? But there's what I call a bereavement process that you have to go through, all right? It's a grief, it's a loss, because it's a disappointment, because the whole reason and your expectation when you decided as two people to join in marriage together, and now it has ended up this way, you feel that you failed.
Right.
And that is a very, very difficult and painful journey that you have to go through. And what we do is to go through that process with you so that you can see life after this. You have to move on. But you cannot move on until you have dealt with that pain.
Right.
So that is how you have to see it.
So the first step
so many times when you see people coming and the emotion and the things, they're still complaining of what happened. Or because he left me for that other woman. And now he's living with her. Right? You've divorced him. But that is still bothering you because emotionally you're still tied to that. So that is what we have to sever ties with in order for you to move on.
So is it the first step after the divorce, you're saying is grief? So you're allowing them to grieve first.
That's right. And that they understand what is happening to them.
Express their emotions.
Of course.
And then the next step is now severing the tie from that past relationship.
Right. And then how do I move on? Where do I go from here?
Move on?
And then we do this together.
Right.
You see, sometimes when people go through a divorce, sometimes they don't have the support from family members or friends. And they need that in order to go on. And a lot of times in divorce, I would like to point out, Mr. Room, that a lot of focus is on the wife, the mother, the children. And the man is sort of left out of the picture.
And it's true.
But he goes through the grief also.
It's true. The men, we have emotions, ladies, we have emotions too, I mean, society doesn't allow men to show too much emotion, but they
went through a divorce, whereby the wife actually moved on with the children. She took the children as well. And he's left in that empty space. That is something.
Yeah.
Try to put yourself in that situation where the children, the rooms, where you might find.
Yeah, gone.
It's like your life has just been taken away from you. Although you might have been the cause for the reason why this divorce actually occurred, but still you're human.
So is it that you would encourage more men to come to seek counseling and to seek divorce therapy?
Although we have still seen that the numbers, as you compare to the men, the women still outnumber the men. And we try to do this in at National Family Service by having a parenting program for men. We sort of bring them into the fray. And we had a very successful one this year, I must say. Right. And although it was done virtually, the men get a chance to speak and say what's going on with them. And you start from there and you try to bring them through.
Are there other men? Is it like a one-on-one or is it like a group setting?
It was a group setting for that.
Well, I think that's good because it could show the men that they're not alone in this.
And what the coordinator of the program told me, which was so interesting for that parenting for men, that even after the completion of the program, they got in contact with each other and they were still carrying on, conversing with each other about it. And it meant so much for them. And that was the whole point of it.
Well, it
doesn't end there.
The thing with that, Edris, is that with men, I think we don't have as much as a support system as women do. So normally you would see a lot of the time a woman is going through a divorce. Sometimes I see women have a little divorce line for their friend because they kind of celebrated that she getting out of that. But not only that, what it does for a lot of women too is that they come together. They will sit down and they will talk about it and whatever. And men sometimes feel a how, as we would say in local parlance, to talk about their feelings.
I will tell you an observation, Mr. Rowe. Men do get together,
Okay.
And they do have their little bonding.
Celebration.
Because research has shown that men need bonding more than women do.
Okay.
All right, and I will tell you where the men bond. In the bar.
In the rum shop.
Right? Or in sports in the savannah, they play the football, they just stand and they talk.
Right.
And they need that company.
Right.
And I observe them very well. I said, look how they do it, and they sit down there and they talk all sorts of nonsense and so on, but they're bonding. And then they will come out, they know the woman, so and so and so.
I think the difference between the men and the women is that they may not address the emotional. And again, they come back to culture.
Right.
That women have been allowed, children, girls, to express their emotion and to cry. So even though they go through the same stages of the grief in different way, you may find the woman may start with the crying, where the man will start with the distraction. So he gets himself distracted. But they all go through the same grief and loss, these stages. We might be at different places. So though one of your episodes had the stages of grief and loss, and it would have started, some people may start at denial, some may be angry, some may be bargaining, some may be depressed, or some might say, yes, it's over. This nightmare is over. I've accepted.
Right.
But for me, when I'm dealing, because we do have a men's support group, and it is facilitated by the male colleagues.
Right.
So we don't get the opportunity to go there. The men is facilitated. They have this camaraderie, the opportunity to meet once a month and share. We are out of it. But the thing that I look at when someone have experienced divorce, and sometimes you don't know how to express your emotion. Sometimes you don't even know how you're feeling. If someone asks you to describe it. So I will use things with men like superheroes or sports. So I'll ask them what they're into. And I will use the language of what they like to help them to deal with these emotions. Because you see, when someone have been divorced, it is similar to the death of losing someone. They go through the acute grief. And if it's not addressed, they have ambiguous grief because there was no closure. So how I help someone is I look at your identity. So I break it down. Now, this is the leverage we have as the expert to help this person navigate by information. So when I get divorced, it is more than just this torment is over. So it is more than a physical thing, like my stress level is down, my blood pressure good, I good, I could sleep now. It's more, it have that physical impact. But now through my identity, how do I identify myself psychologically? Have I failed? Have I failed like my parents? Have I failed? So that's psychological. What am I thinking? How would people look at me psychologically as a failure? Then I go through with them. So I'm telling them the different things, describing it until they say, oh, that's me, till we get the combination. Socially, am I single now? Am I free? Am I this kind of pure, this virgin, untouched, or am I the divorcee? The social labels.
How I'm moving on now.
How I'm moving on. Then we have this cultural element of, in my culture, would I be inclusive or would I be excluded? Depends on my culture. Some people culture that the premise of family, you might be excluded from the family. We don't do this, we family don't divorce. Right. Whereas another family culture maybe, but we don't get married. But
even in some religious organizations.
Well, I was now going there. All those elements. So financially, where am I financially? Because remember, you were contributing, I were contributing. So what is my financial status now? Am I poor? Is my social class drop?
Right.
So I'm angry. And then spiritually, am I upset with God? Did God fail me? Did I fail God? Some religion within our community, they don't marry divorce.
Yeah, they don't marry
divorce.
If they divorce some
but even here at National Family Services, we have a number of clients that come in from time to time who first went to their pastor or whoever for counseling. It did not work, and they ended by us. Because we are neutral. We don't,
So let me ask.
People
is it a case where you're neutral, that you all don't judge people based on religion or what their religion says?
We are, at least in my understanding, we are not supposed to do that.
Non-judgmental approach.
So final comments, ladies. Anyone who is out there and divorced, what would you advise them in terms of coming to get counseling on your end first?
No, I would say, well, once you have not reached that point where you have moved on, or if you're in a state where you are still in grief and uncertain, because some may be in a state of confusion, and you need help, please reach out to us.
Reach out to us on the family services.
And that you have to understand that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
And you may not have that kind of support from family and friends. The same thing that that judgmental thing that you can't deal with, which is understandable. Come to us, be a neutral.
Yeah,
and we will help you along the way.
All right. And on the mediation end?
The mediation, I tell you this much. You must heal before you can present the best version of yourself.
I totally agree with that, because that is basically what I was about to say.
I always say for someone who with divorce, never enter into a rebound relationship.
Thank you very much.
Don't enter. If you are not healed,
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So y'all heard it yourselves from the professionals. So we want to thank you all very much for joining us. This has been another entertaining, informative. We are bringing the information to you, to your screens, TT Community Online Services. Voices of the people. My name is Rome. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to the Ministry of Sport and Community Development.